I think the first thing that folks probably need to kind of keep in mind these days with respect to playbooks is we're living in the era of AI. So what that means is that your playbooks need to be created to work with an AI review tool. And so really what that means in practical terms is that instead of having a playbook that otherwise may have been sort of a long narrative, document, you really want to have it be very structured and be very, very clear as to what each thing is. In other words, if you have an area of, say, confidential information, it should be called confidential information in one place and not be labeled something else differently somewhere else. So you want to be consistent in labeling because AI is going to view the playbook and view those terms as different things if they're called different things. So you want to have consistent terminology. You also want to have provisions by category. For example, have confidential information be one category, another being perhaps data protection, another for intellectual property, another for liability and limitation of liability and indemnification, and so on. So that's another thing you really want to keep in mind. And lastly, I would say, and this probably is perhaps hardest for a lot of folks to sort of put into practice in some ways, is traditionally you had sort of templates they would use with playbooks, and the playbook would run through the template and pick out things that may or may not be aligned to your playbook. You really want to have sort of a set of clauses that are your standard clauses you want to see in every agreement with specific language, and use those clause libraries as your playbook as opposed to a long document. That
Mhm.
way, the AI knows exactly where to look, exactly what to put in where, and what to suggest on a specific clause level, um, on a clause level. And so I think that's something that can be very powerful. So again, this really comes back to this point of kind of doing your due diligence and doing your prep work first before you move into actually implementing a playbook, because everyone wants to get to the fun part of just applying the thing, but you have to create the thing to apply before you can apply it.